Apple just hired Universal Audio's Vice President of Technology and Chief Architect. I don't know about you, but that sounds like huge news for me. I think it's going to have enormous impacts on Logic. If you don't know Universal Audio, they are one of the biggest companies in music production gear, both analog and digital. They're famous for their LA2A, their 1176 analog compressors, their preamps, so much quality gear. And then they reinvented themselves in '99 and beyond with their digital side of things, with incredible interfaces, incredible plug-in emulations. In fact, a lot of pro engineers say that the only reason they could switch to mixing in the box in their computer and not use analog gear was because Universal Audio's plugins were so good. So the fact that Apple just hired their vice president of technology and their chief architect, who, by the way, also worked at Avid designing Pro Tools plugins as well before going to Universal Audio, the fact that Apple just hired this guy to be their senior manager of audio systems, I think is going to fundamentally change Logic in 2023 and beyond. So in today's video, I want to go through my 5 predictions of what's coming up for Logic in 2023 and beyond. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Band Guide. I'm your band guy, Colin, and today I want to share with you 5 predictions that I have for Logic in 2023 and beyond, based on what I'm seeing very specifically and concretely in other DAWs and with this new hiring of Dave Tremblay. Now, Dave Tremblay was the Vice President of Technology and Chief Architect for Universal Audio for 9 years. Before that, he worked for Avid, where he designed their AAX plugin system, which was a huge upgrade over their old RTOS system. He's a big deal, and the fact that Apple just pulled him in is, I think, a huge deal for Apple. But not all my predictions are going to be based around that in today's video. And I just want to say, as we're getting into it, that I am not in any way affiliated with Apple. These are just my predictions, but they're my predictions based on what I'm seeing across other DAWs and just the industry in general. I feel pretty confident about them. So let's go and get into them, starting with prediction number 1, which is Logic will not be moving to a subscription model. I feel very confident in this. Apple is not in the business of subscription models. They do some of it, of course, with like Apple TV and all that, but really what they're in the business of is getting you hooked on their systems. And they want you to be bought in on their systems. If you want to use Logic in your studio or have the ability to use Logic in your studio, you have to have a Mac. You have to have an Apple to do that. And so they're in the subscription model, the longer term subscription model of getting you to buy an Apple ecosystem computer over and over and over again over the span of your life. And that is their subscription model, in my opinion. They want you to be bought in on Logic. Logic is not going to make them nearly as much money selling a $20 a month subscription like Pro Tools or $40 a month like Pro Tools as they would if they just get you locked in on it and you just have to keep rebuying a Mac every time you do it. If they put any sort of buffer to resistance to that, I don't think that that works in favor of their model. So I could be wrong here. I could be eating my words. In 6 months when they introduce a subscription model, just let me know in the comments below that I was totally wrong on this. But in the meantime, I feel pretty confident in this. I would bet not my bottom dollar, but my next to bottom dollar that Apple is not going to move Logic to a subscription model. Okay, prediction number 2. This hiring of Dave Tremblay from Universal Audio is a huge deal, and I think the most obvious place that we can expect to see that will be in their plugins. And my bet is that we're going to see a lot more proprietary Logic emulation, analog emulation plugins in 2023 and beyond. And I think that they're going to be world-class. Universal Audio's plugins were world-class, and although I'm sure Dave Tremblay was not solely responsible for all of that, he certainly had a hand working on them for 9 years. So him coming over to Logic is a huge deal for Logic's plugin game. My guess is their plugins that are already really good are only going to get better, and we're going to see more and more and more. And with that leads me to prediction 3, which is that I also think we're actually going to see a dedicated plugin manager built into Logic and interfacing with Logic in a way that we've never seen with another company, because we're getting the whole force of Apple behind it. I would not be surprised if we end up with a plugin manager that's kind of integrated into Logic, where we can try out plugins with a really seamless integration, if you will, where it's almost instantaneous, where you can download a plugin and it's basically in Logic immediately. I'd be really surprised if we don't get that. And my bet is those plugins are going to be Logic specific. You're not going to be able to use them in other DAWs. Maybe GarageBand, but I kind of doubt it. I think this is going to be a way that they're also going to try to get people to switch up to Logic from GarageBand, is by having these really cool plugins that are only Logic specific, but they're going to be really, really world-class plugins. And I bet they're not going to be crazy expensive, because again, it's about keeping you in this ecosystem. If they can make something that's affordable over here, that's going to keep you buying this super expensive thing over here, they're going to keep you in that ecosystem. But that also leads me to prediction number 4, which is that I would not be surprised if we end up with subscription model for plugins built into Logic. Not something that you have to do, but something that you can do to make it more affordable. So, for example, if they're selling all their plugins at $50 a pop, and they're amazing analog emulations that are going heads up against Universal Audio level of plugins, I wouldn't be surprised if we have a $20 a month or a $15 a month subscription model for those plugins, and it gives you access to the whole suite of them and all that stuff. Though it's similar to other plugin subscription models, but just in Logic and just with these plugins that will be Logic specific. Again, this is all hypothesis, but I think it's coming. Okay, prediction number 5, and this is a huge one and I think could fundamentally change Logic, is that I think we're going to get an analog summing mixer built into it. I think we're going to get this kind of console emulation built into Logic, and I bet it's going to be awesome. I bet it's going to be really, really, really good. Now, this is something that is a long time coming. They're behind on it. Logic's behind on it. Apple's behind on it. Pro Tools rolled out Heat years ago. That's kind of analog summing built into Pro Tools. It's really, really cool, but it's not the best in the world. Studio One by PreSonus has this really cool, I think it's called Console Shaper, where you can change out the console and it just quickly totally changes the tone of your mix. And it's just like a flick of a button and it's like you're running through a different console. That's a really powerful tool. Even Luna, not even Luna, but Luna by Universal Audio, that's an entire DAW based around this idea of a mixing console DAW. They try to really integrate the channel strips and all the emulations and the tape emulations and everything in one DAW. It's a really amazing DAW. It's really, really cool. It's free if you use Universal Audio hardware. But my bet is Apple is now going to do that better. My bet is that might even come before plugins. This summing mixer component is such a cool feature that has been missing from Logic for a long time now. And if they can integrate it and they can do it seamlessly, my bet is they can beat, again, these other companies because they have all of Apple behind it. It's going to be so seamless. It's going to be so smooth. I could be wrong here. I could, again, be eating my words here in a few months, but I feel pretty strongly that this is in the future, if not this year, then soon, because it's where DAWs are moving to just integrate it in where it's very easy to use, very quick to set up, and it's just built into the DAW itself. There's nothing that you have to buy separate, or you could buy multiple integrations. So like you might have a Neve style console that's built into Logic, but then you could add in an API style console, any of those different mixing consoles where you can just switch between them and get that summing characteristic that can just change the tone of a mix. So those are my 5 predictions. I think we are not going to see a subscription model for Logic. I think we are going to get a whole suite of proprietary Logic analog emulation plugins. I think we're going to get a plugin manager. And with that, I think we might get a subscription model for plugins potentially. And then I think we're going to get an analog summing feature built into Logic that's super integrated. I'd love to hear from you, though. What do you think might be coming to Logic now that Dave Tremblay's on board? Also, this is huge news, and I've literally found one article about it, but it is verified. You can see it on Dave Tremblay's LinkedIn profile. He is at Apple now, but I think this is huge news. I don't know why more people aren't talking about it. But let me know in the comments below, what predictions do you have for Logic coming up this year and beyond? And before you go, if you're struggling to create a professional sounding mix, whether it be in Logic or wherever it is you're mixing, I've put together something for you. I put together a 6-step checklist that just walks through the 6 steps that all professional mixes have and how to do them with just stock plugins wherever it is that you're mixing. It's just the fundamentals, and you can do it anywhere. It's completely free from link in the description below. It's really going to help you out. It's already helped out thousands of people. So be sure to grab it for free from link in the description below. If this video is helpful, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next week with another video.
One thing at a time, I can